Trey Hendrickson has his money. The Bengals have reached an agreement with Trey Hendrickson that will have him on the field for 2025. Let's break it down.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, an emergency edition of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Here as Trey Hendrickson has a new contract, or a contract adjustment more accurately, from the Cincinnati Bengals that will have him practicing as soon as possible and joining the team for 2025. Welcome back to all of you who make Locked On Bengals part of your everyday routine. Appreciate all the everydayers out there. Appreciate all of you who make us your first listen. And today we dive into, in this second episode of Locked On Bengals, we already did a 53-man roster prediction. And, well, we've already got some feedback on that, actually, since we did that episode, James. But now we get to talk about what Trey Hendrickson has agreed to, why it makes sense for both sides, why it doesn't make sense for both sides, and what this means for Trey's future in 2026. And James, let's start with your initial takeaways. Trey is going to be playing. That's obviously good, right?
Well, yeah, let's start there. Is the Bengals have started the year 0-2 in each of the past three seasons, 22, 23, and 24. They've talked all offseason, literally since January, whatever it was, when Zach Taylor fired Lou Anarumo and the rest of the coaching staff, that he didn't want around anymore and thought they needed to move on. He said, we have to start faster. Well, it's hard to start faster when you have a distraction. And Trey didn't want to be a distraction, but guess what? When your best defensive player isn't playing, it's still a distraction. It's a distraction to everybody. And when you're hoping your defense is better under Al Golden, significantly better, guess what? It is a distraction. It's hard to win. It's hard to get stops. It's hard to feel like that you can be the defense that I think they're hoping and expecting to be. And so it is huge news. And we're going to dissect this for sure. And this won't be the only time we cover it. But it's huge news to know that Trey Hendrickson, the NFL sack leader, an all-pro defensive end, a guy who finished second in Defensive Player of the Year last season, and has had the best 2-year stretch of his career over the past two seasons, that he's going to be in stripes, happy, ready to go, and have 2 weeks to practice before that opening game against Cleveland. It's funny. I remember saying like August 22nd is my deadline, kind of in that range. They got pretty close to it. And there's a lot of not so good, I would say, when it comes to this deal, but the good is for the 2025 Cincinnati Bengals, you're going to get a Trey Hendrickson that should be ready to go week one, distraction-free.
I always thought Trey Hendrickson was playing this year. The good is that, I guess, it's done earlier than I thought it would be done. I thought we'd be talking about this until next Thursday. And it's nice that it's done now instead of later. He gets to do the whole 2 weeks of practice, ramp up a little bit. Honestly, wouldn't be surprised if he's somewhat limited in that first game of the season from a snap count perspective. Wouldn't be surprised if he's not limited from a snap count perspective in that first game of the season, just because he has missed all of training camp. And so they still have all of that not done for Trey Hendrickson, all of that conditioning and all that buildup that Trey Hendrickson didn't get to do. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's somewhat limited in week one from a snap count perspective as they ramp him up. But again, like I said, with the way he works, wouldn't surprise me if there's no limitation either. The nitty-gritty of this deal, James, is that it is reportedly a $14 million raise for Trey Hendrickson in 2025, with another $1 million in incentives, according to Adam Schefter, if Trey's out there for at least 60% of the team's defensive snaps and the Bengals make the playoffs. So it could be a $15 million raise for Trey Hendrickson. It essentially adjusts his previous 1-year extension, which was 1 year, $21 million, and now it's 1 year, $35 million. You had the $14 million raise. So to me, James, I think Trey wins here. If you had to say one side wins, one side loses, whatever it is, Trey gets a raise for a year that he was already under contract and gives up very little in return. The Bengals must have believed him when he told them repeatedly he was not going to play this year on his current deal. They also wanted to reward him. I think that's part of it too. But there's not much upside here for the Bengals. They, I guess, don't have any commitments to a player that they're worried about being on the wrong side of 30. I guess that is something they would consider a win. They get Trey Hendrickson on the field. That's obviously good. Like I said, I think that was going to happen regardless at some point this year. But I have a hard time seeing this as something that isn't Trey Hendrickson at least getting something here. He didn't get what he wanted, which was multiple years of security, but he got something in exchange for playing in a year that he was already under contract.
Sure. And that's the win. He gets paid. He gets to be with his teammates. He gets to play out this year. Here's why the Bengals did it. And why I think it's a win for the Bengals. It's the opposite for me. They didn't commit anything long-term. They didn't have any problem paying Trey this year. They were worried about paying Trey in 26 and 27, and certainly 27. And if he's good this year, well, guess what? We're right back here. And in that's what's surprising to me about the Trey situation. If he has 15 sacks this year, he's not hitting the market. Doesn't mean I've seen some of the insiders and I think Trey's camp expects, he's going to hit the market. Why would he? What would lead anyone to believe that he's going to actually become a free agent? That doesn't mean he's going to be on the Bengals. Maybe he won't be. Maybe they won't want to deal with it. Maybe they get an asset for him and go that route. But he's still able to get franchise tagged. That tag is going to be reasonable based on projections, comparatively speaking to what Trey's contract is and what his demands would be. If he plays really well this year, it would not shock me. Regardless, and they do have enough cap space to do it. They're projected to have like $64 million in cap space as of now. Obviously, that'll change. So that's what's so interesting to me is he doesn't get that long-term security, and it kicks the can down the road. And we're going to be having this discussion if he plays well in February. We are guaranteed.
Yeah, that was a big question that I think a lot of people had. Is there a no tag clause in this contract? According to Jordan Schultz, there is no tag clause. According to Diana Rossini, the Bengals had a 3-year, $95 million offer for Trey Hendrickson. That was the multi-year offer. And I think that includes 2025. So that's a 2-year extension that would be 2025, 2026, 2027 for a total of $95 million in new money, plus what he was already in line to make this year, which will put him right around $34, $35 million a year. But when there were no guarantees in year 2, or at least not adequate guarantees in year 2, Trey Hendrickson didn't want that. And that sent them back to the drawing board, back to the table, and is why they land on a 1-year pay raise, no extension for Trey Hendrickson that has him in line to be a free agent or get franchise tagged. And we'll have to talk more about that possibility because I think that is definitely going to be something that is going to be a consideration next year. At the very least, a tag and trade and doing this whole song and dance again. Let's continue the conversation around the options that Trey had between the $95 million over 3 years versus the 1-year raise option that he ends up taking, the guaranteed money issue, the franchise tag issue, as we wrap up Trey Hendrickson agreeing to return to the field for the Cincinnati Bengals after he gets a raise, coming up next.
This breaking news episode of Locked On Bengals is brought to you by Yahoo Fantasy. Yahoo Fantasy is perfect for you, me, and anyone else. I've been playing Yahoo Fantasy for years and years and years, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. And they have new guillotine leagues this year. And that's what's really great about Yahoo Fantasy. They're always evolving, and their guillotine leagues are, well, I'm excited. I can't say they're awesome yet. I'm expecting them to be awesome. I've never done a guillotine league, but it's a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. It's one of the many 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August that Yahoo Fantasy is celebrating their 28th anniversary. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together, whether it's a guillotine league, whether it's a classic league, or head-to-head private league. Get in on all of the fun right now and stay tuned for more killer announcements. Start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL.
This episode of Locked On Bengals also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel has a pretty cool thing coming, and it's the day after Trey Hendrickson agreed to terms with the Cincinnati Bengals on August 26th. It is FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. So now that Trey Hendrickson is for sure going to play this season for the Cincinnati Bengals, you can get 24 hours of deals on NFL season predictions. So whether it's MVP and you're looking at Joe Burrow, Super Bowl champion, you have confidence in the Bengals now that you know Trey Hendrickson is playing. Defensive player of the year, you think Trey Hendrickson is going to repeat his awesome year and run away with it this year. You can check all of that out now at FanDuel.com. Visit the app today and start planning your futures bets now. That is August 26th, Tuesday. You might be listening to this on Futures Day for all I know. Check it all out. FanDuel app. Plan your futures bets now because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game.
Let's get to the tag possibility a bit. And it would be a lot. It's $36 million. So it would be a lot. But there were plenty of rumblings, and I heard this a few weeks ago, like the Bengals are willing to offer him 35 plus million per on an extension. And so cap goes up, Trey plays well, can totally see the scenario where the Bengals are like, well, this is an asset that we don't want to lose. And so, yeah, not getting the no tag there, I do think that's something that we're going to be talking about, even if they don't use it. That March 4th tag deadline in 2026, Jake, and I already looked it up. It's it's March 4th at 4 p.m., 2026. That's going to be a deadline that we're talking about for sure.
Already putting it in the calendar. And I've seen some disagreement about what the tag number would be. It would not be the $26 million defensive end number that you'll see if you go look it over the cap, because it will be 120% of Trey's salary, his most recent salary, what he's getting paid this year. I've seen it between 36 and 39. I'm trying to figure out what exactly the number would be. As we're recording this, I'm actually talking to some people who would have insight as to what the number what number it would be for the math for 120% is essentially what I'm trying to figure out. But I think there becomes a point where it becomes unpalatable. Like $39 million on the franchise tag is a stick in the mud from a cap perspective. That's a lot. 26, very doable. I have a tweet that's currently out there that I'm going to probably have to take down because I forgot about the 120% rule as we're recording this, James. But
yeah, me too.
The number for the tag could actually be prohibitive if it's actually 39 million. But would the Bengals be interested in a tag and trade possibility? That's what I'm curious about.
Sure. Why wouldn't they if they had a deal in place? And that's something you would have to work. I think it's 36. I initially thought 26 too, but you can't go that route. You by that I'm saying you can't as a player take a pay cut on the tag. And that's why they do the 120% rule. For some reason, I was thinking that was only with the second tag. We've had a lot of experience with the franchise tag, but not in this scenario. What I would say though to the people that are skeptical is just understand that last year at this time, T was hoping to become a free agent and things changed in a big way. And so Trey may have a plan. The Bengals may have a plan. These things can change in a hurry. And we'll see. I'm still pretty surprised that we're at this spot where it's just this year, because if Trey was willing to do this a few months ago, I bet the Bengals would have been open to it. I really do. I don't think the Bengals have any problem paying him a bit more this year because they do feel like he deserves it. They were leery of future years, and to not lose future years control, even if they don't want to necessarily pay that tag number, you can shop him in Indianapolis at the combine, which isn't something they've necessarily done in the past, but that's what I would do if he goes out and he has 15 sacks again.
Yeah. I think despite all of that, the most likely outcome here is that this is a one-year deal for his last year in Cincinnati. And unless it is a kumbaya moment next year and they get an extension done, I am increasingly skeptical as we discuss this that the franchise tag would be used. We'll see. I mean, obviously, like you said, a lot can change between now and then. And how he plays this season is going to be a big part of that. But it seems likely that this is one last go for it for Trey in Cincinnati. And then he is going to eventually be an unrestricted free agent, which is what he wanted. He'll have a chance to get that long-term security. He won't be getting it from the Bengals, which I think was the ideal. And yesterday, every sign to me still pointed to a multi-year extension happening, which is why when this news happened earlier today, for those of you that follow me on social media, I was like, I'm not buying the raise for 2025. And
I didn't buy it either. Especially with the no tag, because that's how it was kind of thrown out there, is both. And I was like, there is no way they give him we're promise we won't tag you and a raise. They just wouldn't do it. Maybe they would do the no tag, or maybe they would do the raise, but not both. And they obviously did the raise.
Yeah. So from the Bengals' perspective here, they, like you said, aren't taking the risk for future years for Trey Hendrickson. No risk for 2026. No risk for 2027. And a potential future debate over franchise tag ideas, over tag and trade ideas for next offseason, and an end to the drama, at least for now. We'll have one more day probably where this will come up. Maybe Trey will speak on it, and we'll have that instance. And then it is Trey Hendrickson practicing, playing football for the Cincinnati Bengals for 2025 and turning down that 3-year, $95 million offer that Diana Rossini reported. That was, I believe, again, a 2-year extension, which would take his current contract to 3 total years with $95 million in new money, in addition to the $21 million extension, which puts him, like I said, right around $34 million per year. But without knowing what the signing bonus was that was offered to Trey Hendrickson there, James, impossible to know what exactly he turned down in terms of practical guarantees, but with not enough or no salary potentially guaranteed in year 2, Trey Hendrickson wasn't taking it. Then we end up on this compromise instead. What were your thoughts when you saw the reports around what was offered and turned down by Trey Hendrickson?
The how much was up front? We knew there were no guarantees beyond this year, but you're right. The signing bonus would be key in a deal like that. And I wonder if Trey looked at it and said, all right, if I get to 30 this year and then the tag is 36 next year, that's going to be more than the signing bonus. Like, I don't know. And also get the chance to potentially get to free agency versus not. But it's a risk. Like that's a risk too. It's just really hard to speak on it without knowing exactly what the structure is. But I had heard that they offered a pretty hefty signing bonus. Like that's what I had heard. Like when things were starting to perk up a bit. So you never truly know. But and I don't think if it was that hefty, would he have turned it down? Like I don't know why he would have. Why would you? And so it's tough to say though. But yeah, I am surprised that we're here, and we'll see if it works out for both sides.
The Bengals get to say they did not break precedent on year 2 guarantees for players who aren't Joe Burrow or Jamar Chase. And they get to continue their preference for not paying money to players on the wrong side of 30 on big multi-year deals. Trey Hendrickson gets money for this year, has an opportunity to be a free agent next year. Trey Hendrickson will be playing football this year, which the Bengals sorely need. Was never really a question for me. Like I've said a few times, never bought any of the trade hype, James, but a surprising conclusion to this saga, to say the least, that it lands on a 1-year, no extension, just a raise to get Trey Hendrickson back into the fold for 2025.
Conclusion. I think that can is just being kicked, my friend. We'll see.
It's the end of this saga. There may be another saga.
Yeah.
And we'll see.
You look up and Trey has 12 sacks in the first 8 weeks. It's like, oh.
Here we go again.
Oh, that can is just kicking down the road. Evan, you better kick that thing far, my man.
Let's wrap up there. That's going to do it for this bonus/emergency episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Until next time, which will be after the cut down. Thanks for listening. Hoo day, and have a good one.